Hey everybody, and welcome back to DJ Tutorials. Really excited. This is going to be the first of a series where we do a fantasy ring design, very much in the sort of spirit of Lord of the Rings, and you'll be able to make something that pretty much looks like this render by the end of this series. So before we begin, you'll need to do a couple things. So I am on a website here, a GitHub site for Jewelcraft. You'll need to download this. So if you go to the link in the description below, scroll down, you'll see that there's a download right here. It says download Jewelcraft. You'll want to download this and install it. And I also have, if you are going to be looking at the project file that's going to be on Gumroad, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're going to do that, you'll need to download this font right here, which I'm going to have the link in the video description. It's from DeFont. I don't have any affiliations with anybody. I'm not going to promise you're never going to get any sort of adware or anything like that, but this is where I got it. So this is where the text files were, so I got it from here. And again, that link is going to be in the video description. And then just to show you what the project file looks like. So this is the project file when it is basically done. Ours is going to look slightly different because every time I do this, it tends to be just a tad bit different. So just take a look at this and keep this in mind that this is generally what we're going to be doing. And the project has all of the materials and textures and everything packed into it. And this whole project file is available on Gumroad. So if I go to the site here on the Gumroad and I scroll down, the link is in the description below. You can see that there's the project file. So that's what it looks like on there. But again, ours is going to look a little bit different than this. So just keep that in mind. But that is a project file if you want to get it and take a look at it. There's all kinds of cool stuff in there. And that's basically what this is here. So there we go. Now, what we're going to be doing by the end of the project is having something that looks pretty much like this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Here's our default scene. We're just going to grab everything with A, and as always, we're just going to destroy that little guy right there. So sorry to see you go, default cube, and we're going to hit N to bring open our tools here. Now, this tutorial is not for fresh beginners. I do not recommend this for anyone who doesn't know anything about modeling. I do have screencast keys here, and I'll do my best to tell you what I'm doing verbally, but it does get a little bit difficult for me to tell you the concept and the overall process if I'm just telling you key commands and things like that. So you should have a cursory knowledge of how things work in the Blender workspace and with hard surface modeling. If you don't, I do have a tutorial series that does talk about that. So there's a wrench tutorial series that you might want to take, but let's go ahead and get started anyway. So let's go over here to Jewelcraft, and you can see right here, drop down this warning here, it says set units. All that's going to do, if we look at this right here, our units for our scene, click that, and it's now set to a metric, which the UK people are going to love that system, and it's in the proper units, and it's in the right workspace for us to work in inside of Blender. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to add a gem. So in this add-on, you get some really great stuff. So we get the carrots and you get the size. Not only that, you also get all these different cuts, which is pretty fantastic. So we're going to do this marquee one here because it looks awesome, and I did it with the render that I showed you, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and select that right there. Once that's selected, we can hit OK, and this opens up right down here that says size, and it also says carrots. So if you do need to have any of that detail for the carrots and all that kind of stuff, you can do that, but we're going to do things more based on feel. So we're going to increase this size here. We're going to do this at about 9 millimeters here, just like that right there. Okay. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to start to create what I call the backing for this thing. So we're going to hard surface model a casing that this is going to be set in. And then later we're going to put some prongs to sort of keep the gem and the casing together on the ring design that we create. So let's duplicate this with Shift D, right click to set it back where it is, hit tab to go into edit mode, and we're going to very easily and very quickly here, let's actually rename this. We'll name this backing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the top here, X to delete vertices, and we're going to delete the bottom vertices as well. Make sure that you have your tools open to the select box. And what we have left, if we alt left click, we can select the loop cuts here. And what we want to do is we want to create this basically a casing that goes around this thing, a backing, so to speak, that's going to cover the entire back of our gem, but allow the front to shine. And we're going to leave a little hole in the back so that some light can also go through there. So to make this a little bit more even, we're going to make sure that up here we have this set to median point. So that's basically our transform pivot point. Hit S, Z, 0 on the numpad, and that's going to set that to 0. And you can see that we're starting to create a little bit of an issue here. You can see that there's some overlap, but that's fine. Grab the bottom, SZ0 again, and now we can actually hit G, Z, and pull these around. And grab this and pull this up here as well. Okay, so let's then grab this bottom one here and hit E, lock it on the Z axis, and then scale that in. And you can kind of make this however you want. I'm going to make it something kind of like this. And you can see here, again, we have this issue here, and we're going to deal with that in just a moment, but let's do something else first. So let's grab this, and let's add a subdivision surface modifier, and pump that up to 2. And we're also going to add a solidify modifier, set this offset to a +1, and set the thickness so it goes out. You can see that we have a little bit of an issue here, right? We have this section that's sort of bleeding through and this section here. We already knew that there was already an issue when we saw the overlap. But let's go back into edit mode here. And if we go here to the modifier, we can actually select these, which will allow us to edit the cage that it's on instead of having to like guess where those might be. And we can go to item and set a crease there, okay? Which will help take care of part of this. And then here we can set a crease there as well. And then on the back right here, we can set a crease. And then we can grab all of this right here and hit Alt S, which just in case you don't know what that is, if I go up here to the overlays, whoops, and I go down to normals, you can see there, see the little arrows? That's the normals. So if I hit Alt S, it will actually scale according to those normals instead of on X, Y, and Z, okay? So let's go inside of our object really quick, and you can see it's inside of our gem, which we don't want. That's going to cause problems later when we start to actually shade this properly. So let's hit Alt S, scale it out until it's gone from the inside, and there we go. Now, if we shade smooth this, you can see that there's some problems, and that can be resolved by going down to the object data properties, going down to normals, and clicking the auto smooth. But that creates its own problem. And what is that, you say? Well, it's a little bit too sharp. Okay, so this is going to be a metal, but metals don't have that kind of sharpness to them. So to make this look a little bit better, we're going to take this auto smooth and we're actually bump this up a little bit because we don't necessarily want that to be super sharp and we don't want this to be super sharp, but we want that to be super sharp. And we're also going to add a bevel modifier. And let's just take this amount here and we will just control that bevel shape kind of like that there. You can control the angle here to get it what you want, but that seems okie dokie, at least for the time being. And I like to model things like this with these non-destructive methods that are this small because we might want to adjust this at some point, and this just makes it a lot easier. Now for this sort of shading down at the bottom, to just tighten this up, we might want to grab that edge loop and you can either try to do a sharp crease there, or you can add a loop cut with Control R and drag that down a little bit, which will tighten that up. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do here is we are going to create our general band that's going to be for this ring. So let's hit Shift A. We're going to add a curve here, and it's going to be this circle. I have additional curves. Just keep that in mind. I do have this extra stuff here. You want this Bezier circle right here, okay? And it's not visible. You can see that it's down there. But what we want to do is we want to look at this Bezier circle information here, and you can see this millimeters. Change this to a 16, which is going to be about there. So kind of use this in relation with this gemstone here. You can see that's a pretty large gemstone to be on this ring. We might need to go 17, but let's just leave it as is right now. And you could always change this later after I show you the method. You can changes to be what you would like it to be. But it's really cool if the gemstone is large, so let's just keep it as is. All right, let's grab this gemstone here and go over to the jewel craft, and underneath where it says jeweling, click that open, select your curve, and then click this right here that says distribute on curve. Now, it's created this a whole bunch of these, and that's what's so cool about this add-on is there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do, and I do recommend that you play with this. But for the purposes of this project, all we're really going to do is we're going to change this to a 1 right here for the quantity. And the size, we're going to keep the size. You could see you could change it again right here. We're going to take this tilt, change this to a -90, which will rotate it like that. And if we hit 1 here, you could see that with our front-facing camera, the gem is pointed directly at us, which is what we want. And then if we take this, the backing here, select the curve, do the same thing, click distribute on curve, and then instead of 10 for the quantity, bring this down to a 1. It is perfectly in line there. Great. Fantastic. Now, for the band itself, I like to visualize a lot of things before I actually do it. So I'm going to go to the curve setting here and go down to geometry, and I'm going to extrude this up. And this is a pretty large stone. I'm not going to lie, this is pretty big. We might need to scale this down, but from what I understand, this is generally what we ended up doing with the project that I showed in the beginning of this video. So I like to sort of visualize the overall shaping here, and it's going to come down in a cascading shape like that, and it might need to be a little bit of a sharp angle here, but it's going to come down just like that, okay? And let's keep that kind of as is, and we're going to add a mesh circle here. And instead of 32, you can see that it added it right there. We're going to change this to a 64, and let's scale that up and get it just about, let's put it right about there. So we want it to be a little bit at the edge of this backing right here. So right about like that, all right? So let's take this and let's actually just turn that off for now. Take our circle, let's name this band. And go into edit mode, hit 1 for the vertex selection here, and we're just going to marquee select all of this edge. Go to wireframe just to make sure you got that sucker right there. And we're going to delete those vertices. Then add a mirror. So modifier, go to the mirror modifier. And now when we make an adjustment, let's go to edge select with 2 here and go to solid mode. If I grab one, you can see I'm grabbing the other as well, okay? And you'll notice that when I did that, they're not connected, and that's because clipping is not enabled. So let's go ahead and enable clipping and go to vertex select, A to select all, E, and then Z. So now we have an extrusion going up like this, and let's kind of make it as tall as we want this top of the band to be. You'll notice that the bottom isn't being projected. We just have half of it, so click this Z, and you can see that now we have both sides. So what we can do here is a couple things. I'm just going to, just for a moment, watch what I do. And I can take this and I can pull this down and just create like the overall band shape, right? And then I can then go to wireframe, select this edge, whoops, select this edge right here, and then hit O for proportional editing. You can see that little circle there. That's the area of influence. I can pull this up and, sort of adjust as needed like this. Or you can just, without using proportional editing, which again is up here if you don't know, and you can change the shaping like this. So if I Control Z, I can actually change this to a sphere shape if I want. And then see I have that sort of shaping there. Or I can have root, inverse, sharp. Maybe sharp will work pretty cool. See, just like that. Lock it on Z, boom. Or I can just select that vertex there, grab on Z, and now it's even sharper like that. So you can do that if you like. That's up to you. But I like a little bit of control when I'm doing this sort of thing. Proportional editing is cool for certain things, but we have few enough of these vertexes that we really don't need to worry too much about stuff when we're just pulling these around. We're not going to waste too much time. The only thing that I will recommend is that when you're doing this, you might want to, if I just hit 1 here, we're just going to hide all of these back here. And that's going to allow us to have a little bit of control when we're looking at this from the front view here. And we want to grab these. We're not grabbing the back section as well. Okay, so I hit H to hide. Alt H will bring those back. Okay, so whoops, let's Alt H, deselect those there with Control and Marquee, and then hit H again to get those hidden. So let's go to solid view, grab this. Oops, looks like I have proportional editing on again. Um, grab that, move that up there, and now I can just grab on Z and I can just move this around and create what I want the front of my ring shape to be. And this is where you can kind of start to block in the overall shaping of your ring design. Okay, so take a moment to do that. I will speed up this section. Okay, so here we are, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now pull this section up here, because you can see that if we turn the marquee off, you can see that we're cutting through this section right here. And that's a problem. We don't want that to happen, right? We want to create a hole right here for this. And we might not have enough geometry right here to make this 100% accurate or as close as we'd like it, but we'll deal with that in a little bit. So what we'll do here is we'll actually remove the clipping right there. So turn the clipping off, and that will allow us free reign to just pull these sections around and do what we want with it. Make sure that you're locking this on the Z when you do it. You don't want to accidentally move it in a direction that's not in a circular method. And if you do run into that issue, you can go and enable the add-on loop tools, which will allow you to create circles and stuff. But I do not recommend that you rely on that, especially if you're a beginner. You can run into some problems here. Just we didn't get too far at this point. Just don't pull these around in any other direction besides Z at the moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and enable clipping again, since we have that, and we can just make sure that that's connected there. And if you want, you can actually select this one. So let's undo clipping, pull that up on the Z, and let's actually do this one here as well. Let's make this kind of a little bit larger. And we can always edit this later if we'd like, but you can see how pretty big that gemstone is there. We can grab this and pull this up a little bit more if we'd like to make more of a peak and all this sort of thing. And to visualize this a little bit more, let's hit Control S to save. Let's visualize this by adding a couple things here. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier. You can hit Control 2 for that as well, which will allow us to see this a little bit closer. And the other thing that we can do here is we can actually add a solidify, right, this here, and change the thickness. Change the offset to a 1, change the thickness like this. You can see that we're sort of visualizing what the overall shaping is going to be for this, and we can look and see that this is a little bit fat right in this section here. So we can pull this up like this, or we can select this. Let's hit Alt H here, and you can select this right here and Control select that all the way around. Grab that on Z, and then grab this here like that. So you can kind of like start to really change the shaping here to what you would like it to be. And go ahead and take a moment again to just grab these all, lock it on the Z, and get the shaping kind of where you want it to be. And what we can do, just really quick, you can add a loop cut right in here to control this section a little bit more. So we can grab that, pull that up a little bit on the Z, and then this right here, grab this and pull this up a little bit, and even add another loop cut. And you can control the point at the top here like so, if you'd like something like that. Just might have to be a little bit careful because you don't want any super sharp points right here. And just so that we can see this shading a little bit more clearly, if we go up here and change the shading to matte cap and change this to this one right here, that's like a metal, we can see what the shading's going to look like. You can see that little dent right there. So you might want to grab that. Control X will dissolve that loop cut, and maybe try it again without doing too much, but that will look just fine like this here. Okay, so we have a general shape here. We have this stuff here to kind of let us see what the overall shape is going to be like when we start to extrude this out a little bit. And you can see it's a little bit lumpy right here, but that's okay. We can always adjust that later. So let's go ahead and delete the solidify modifier. And let's go into edit mode. And what we'll want to do is just double check that our clipping is enabled for our mirror modifier. Go to the face select up here, hit A, and if you'll notice here, the normals, you see these normals right here, they're pointed in. We actually want them to be the opposite direction. So let's go to mesh, normals, flip. And you can see that now the normals, see those little blue lines are all pointed out. Okay, so that's good. We want that. So let's hit E here, right click, and I want to talk about a nifty little command called Alt S, which will scale according to the normals. So we will hold Shift and just pull that in and create the overall shaping here. It's going to look something like this. And hit Alt S again, and we can scale according to those normals, just like that. Now from here, we just want to check a couple things. So if I click on this Z right here and I look at the bottom, I want to make sure that I don't see a whole bunch of faces where this should be connected. If you do see a bunch of faces, it's possible that you extruded before you turn back on clipping. You could just delete those. So you can hit left click to select and then control will select all in that line. So you can just select all those and delete them by hitting X and then, whoops, X and then faces. And then the other thing that we want to check is on this axis up here. You want to make sure that you don't have a face there, because if you do, you'll get weird looking stuff. And I'll just show you what that looks like. If I put a face there and I turn back on this, you can see how sharp that is. That's because there's a face there. Okay, so let's Control Z. Looks good. Happy. Okay, so let's control a little bit of these edges. Hit 2 or press 2 to be on the edge select here, and we're going to select the edge loops all the way around here, and we're going to, let's actually turn on this right here where it says on cage for both of these so that we can select wherever we are. Go to item up here, make sure this is open with N, and left click and drag this mean crease up like that. Let's go ahead and also shade. Let's go to object mode and make sure that this is smooth shaded so we can see how our geometry is sort of lining up here. And take the crease and move it up to a 1. That helps out with those edges there. So let's go ahead and also add a bevel to this. So we're going to go to the bevel modifier, and we can increase or decrease this. You'll notice that kind of like after a while, nothing happens. And that's because it's trying to add a bevel to everything that's 30 degrees or above for the angle change. And we don't necessarily want that. For this particular object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to control the bevel. So I'm going to select all the edges that I want beveled like this. So I'm just going to loop select, oops, loop select all of these. Then go up here to where it says mean bevel weight, turn this up, and then over here instead of limit method angle, change that to weight. And that's going to control where that bevel is to just those sections that we have designated for the bevel. See that right there. Okay. Now you'll notice that we do have an issue with the shading where everything is just sort of smooth shaded and it looks kind of weird. And what we want to do is go down here to where it says object data properties and click on where it says normals here, auto smooth. Okay. And that's going to automatically smooth the sections that we want to be more smooth. Okay. And then the areas that we want more sharp based on that angle change will be treated more sharp like that. Next thing is let's just double check. Yeah, we don't have bevel weight here, so let's put on a bevel weight, but I don't want it to be quite as much as the rest of it. So I'm going to put that as a 0.5, and then this back one here, I'm going to put that also as a 0.5. And you'll notice that when we add that bevel, if we look at this top section here, you can see that now this is a little bit removed from our backing piece that we have to our gem, right? So let's actually grab the sections underneath here, and we can turn this off and the backing and just go underneath here, make sure that that's selected, and let's grab that too just in case. Turn this back on, and we can grab that on Z and just pull that down a little bit. So there we go. So next what we're going to do is we're going to add that line of detail that goes all the way around the outside of the band here. So let's Make sure that clipping is enabled for the mirror modifier, otherwise you're going to have some problems when it comes to this. So let's make sure that that's on. And let's go into edit mode and hit Control R to create these loop cuts. And we're going to roll up on the mouse wheel, left click with 2 of these, and then right click to set it in the middle. And then what we will do is hit Control B, which will add a bevel, hold Shift, and we'll pull this out. And you can roll up on the mouse wheel to make even more subdivisions here, but we don't want that, so let's roll it back down. We just want this one section like this here. Then let's hit E to extrude, Alt S, or actually right click to just set that back where it was, Alt S to scale it along its normals, and make sure you're holding Shift for this because sometimes, like if you don't have your mouse in the right area, it might be a problem for the modeling. So let's hit Alt S there again. Let's just pull that in just a bit like that. So now we have that line of detail. Okay. And what we might want to do there is just like we did with the other areas, we might want to add a crease right in here to just tighten these areas up. So that's let's make this a 0.25 there. And then for this right here, let's do another 0.25. And we can have something that kind of looks like that. And as we add more subdivisions, you'll notice that it gets a lot tighter and a lot more smooth and everything. So, just keep that in mind that when we have it set to this right here, that's not the final geometry. It's just not enough geometry for this to look nice, especially in render when we have some materials on here. It's going to look really weird if we keep it like that. So just keep that in mind, okay? So from this point here, we have this really nice design that's going on. And what we can do is if there ever is an issue with these, if you find that these are kind of a problem, you can grab these and just start dissolving these edges like this. So loop selecting Control X, and I'm just sort of like selecting these and dissolving these edges. You can go back to where it was before those were added, and then you can make some adjustments. Then after you're done doing that, you can add those loop cuts back in just like this, and then Control B to add the bevel, and then E and Alt S to scale that in just like that there. So go ahead and make your adjustments. I'm going to probably take this top section and make this a little bit larger, this top area here, and make some adjustments so that we can have that text sort of fall a little bit more neatly along this top section. So I might do that, and I might make a couple other adjustments as well just to make it so that the overall ring design looks a little bit more akin to what I would like it to look like. So, and sometimes you might run into an issue like this right here. So you can see that I have a little bit of a problem on the inside. You see that right there? And that's because I kind of accidentally connected these two sections right here. And what I might want to do is in edit mode, I might want to grab these two right here and turn off the clipping and then just pull that up on Z, and that will sort of separate those again just like that. Okay, so sometimes you might run into that, so just be a little bit careful when you're doing that. Refine your overall design and make it look really nice, and then we will start again from this point on the next part of the tutorial where we will start to add the prongs, add the detailing behind the marquee piece here, and just start to refine more the overall design of the ring. And I want to challenge you and make sure that you really make this thing a little bit unique. Try to add a little flourish here or there for your own design purposes if you can. Just remember that we will have some text that's running along the top. So this is what mine ended up looking like after I did some adjustments and made some changes to it. And you can see here I put just some quick metallic materials on the two metal objects just to see how our geometry is looking for the moment, and the shading is looking pretty good. So I'm generally happy with that. And you can see that there's this little curve at the top and bottom, so we can grab the top and we can this edge up here, and make sure you have proportional editing on, and you can make this smooth or sharp. I kept it sharp. Grab it on Y and you can move it back, or whatever, and you can make a little curve like that. So that's what I did there. You can add those materials. You can see that I made this top and bottom section a little bit thicker because we know that that font is going to run across this edge right here. So those are the changes I did. You are more than welcome to, make some areas a little bit, slimmer, or, whatever it is that you'd like to do. It's really up to you at this point. Just make sure that you get it to where it's really nice, and practice this once or twice, or, even 3 or 4 times, just to make sure that you have the process down. And I will see you all next time when we start to refine this by adding our backing detail section behind this area here. And we start to create the prongs that will be sticking out from this part of the ring as well. So until then, thanks so much to all of my patrons for all of your donations. It really helps to keep the channel going and gives me motivation to do series like these. So thank you very much. And I will see you all next time on DJ Tutorials.